Hey folks, this is Beth and Jordan from the Guardair Sales and Safety Team. We wanted to thank you for taking the time today to watch the webinar. A couple of things we're going to cover. We're going to go over a quick slide on who Guardair is. We're going to discuss the OSHA regulations, the OSHA kit, and how to conduct an OSHA audit, and how that OSHA Compliance Kit can lead to cost savings. So a little bit about Guardair. We're located in Western Massachusetts. We make the largest breath of safety air guns, and the majority of our products are made right here in-house, which is super important for anybody looking for custom air guns. So these are your typical applications where you see air guns being used: aerospace industry, woodworking, pulp and paper. We do a tremendous amount of business in the automotive manufacturing with Tier 1, Tier 2 suppliers, food processing, and you see them being used a lot in machine shops. So these are the typical homemade air guns that we find out in the plant, and we're going to review the OSHA standards and why these homemade air guns are super harmful to the folks in the plant.
So the first standard surrounding air guns is compressed air for cleaning, and the big thing with this is usually a lot of people misinterpret these OSHA standards. So we're here today to clear these up and kind of make them a little bit more transparent for everyone. The first one being that compressed air, while dead-ended, cannot exceed 30 psi. Dead-ending means that you're taking the gun, you're pressing it up against the skin. And obviously, if it exceeds 30 psi, you are going to puncture your skin and have all that compressed air and wild, oil and everything that travels within that compressed air go into your skin. And God forbid, if it hits a vein, it could cause an embolism, amputation, and so on. Second, chip guarding is within the same realm of this standard, and it actually stands for the ability for you to prevent chips and flying debris that's being blown throughout the area with that given application in effect. And we have obviously different controls within our guns to help mitigate this process. So some potential risks like I talked about before, and here's an example of some. Obviously, the first being that the air is going to enter the bloodstream when the gun is dead-ended, like I talked about. And then second, when people are blowing themselves off with compressed air, flying chips obviously going into their eyes like we talked about with the chip guarding. But then, people are blowing open existing cuts and they're inhaling the dust and debris they're blowing off them. And not just the people doing that, it's the people surrounding them in that job itself. So here's an example of some of the 30 psi functionality and chip guarding that we have. Obviously, the jet guard that we can see here creates an air cone that helps to mitigate that risk, like we said before, of that chip guard and the chips flying back. And then our on-guard chip shield, the physical shield that you see there with our palm jet air gun, helps to do the same exact process, only with an extended gun. And both of these guns meet that 30 psi standard for compliance. So the last but not least standard is going to be occupational noise. And a lot of people are already familiar with this, but the main gist of it is that it can't be within 84 decibels of a given work term in a given location. A lot of times people have to use hearing protection. So we have guns that allow you to obviously lower the decibel range of that gun while still keeping that high flow that you're used to get the job done quickly. So some potential risks and injuries surrounding the occupational noise exposure. Obviously, it's going to be difficulty concentrating if people have earplugs and they can't communicate, so that actually produces low productivity. God forbid, if they don't wear hearing protection, they're going to have hearing loss. So all of our guns that we have here that you can see, the Whisper Jet and the Force 5, actually allow you, in most circumstances, to take out that hearing protection, be within that realm, and use the gun. In some situations, obviously, you can't take it out because you have other things running, but this at least helps you to mitigate and lower the decibels that are coming from that air gun itself.
So this is our OSHA Compliance Kit, and this kit is free to safety professionals and it allows you to test for that 30 PSI standard that Jordan had spoke about. In this kit has a gauge, and it makes it super easy to test for that 30 PSI rule. All you're going to do is carry this gauge in your pocket, in your backpack. When you see an air gun on the plant floor, all you do is put the gauge at the end of the nozzle and pull the trigger. If the gauge stays within the green zone, you're good. Give it back to the operator. If it goes into the red zone, that means it's going to hurt somebody or OSHA is going to fine you. The other item in this kit is going to be the USB drive, and that is a great 8-minute safety video that I suggest showing at your next plant meeting. It does a nice job of laying out the OSHA standards and laying out the risk of having non-compliant air guns. Also in the kit is the OSHA Air Gun Compliance Audit Sheet. And this allows folks to walk a plant and identify what areas of the plant have compliant guns and what areas of the plant have non-compliant guns. And it's a great worksheet to show your safety professional when you're done with the audit.
So once you've used the kit to find those non-compliant guns, again, we have a wide variety of different guns to satisfy the various niches to fill in and retrofit out those non-compliant guns and bring in brand new OSHA-compliant guns. You know, ergonomic options, quieter options, chip flyback options. We have tons, and like Beth said, we have the largest breadth in the industry. There's pretty much sky the limit. We can do custom guns for you if you have precise applications that we can't meet right away. So pretty much anything you need, we can get done. So going over again the OSHA standards, just specifically looking at the nozzles, I want to go over the 30 PSI specifications and how we meet those with these various nozzles. The Venturi nozzle is met with the Venturi holes, as you can see. When it's dead-ended, those act as the pressure release system for the actual PSI to escape and go down to 30. For the air cone, the orifice that the actual air cone is projected out of acts as the release mechanism in that regard. And then last but not least, with the whisper jet in quiet force, you have the hard end, which means that there's nothing that's actually physically going to puncture the skin because it's physically impossible.
So what's the cost of failing to meet the OSHA standards? The first one is if OSHA walks your plant and finds non-compliant air guns, the fines start at $12,000 and only go up from there. The other one, and the most important one, is God forbid somebody gets hurt in the plant. And we know what kind of costs are associated with that, from lost time on the job, decreased production, and all the legal expenses. So these are the OSHA fines as of 2018, and we can tell you that these fines have gone down from 2017, and it's because we're educating the folks in the field, we're supplying OSHA kits, we're doing OSHA audits, so we're pretty proud to see those numbers go down.
So some common myths surrounding air guns. You know, like I said before, the OSHA standards are very vague and a lot of people misunderstand them. First being the 30 PSI standard. A lot of people believe that that means you have to power your gun at 30 PSI no matter what. If you did this, you'd get nothing done. 30 PSI is like using a blow dryer. So you can power your gun from 90 to 120 PSI as long as you have, like we've talked about, those nozzles that allow that dead-ended gun to go down to 30 PSI, as you can see on the guy's arm in the picture. Second, blowing yourself off with air that's 30 PSI or lower is a safe practice. This is not true. Blowing yourself off with any air, no matter how low PSI it is against OSHA chip flyback standards. This is because, like we said before, you're blowing yourself off, you're knocking up all the dust into the air for other people to breathe in. You want to contain all that underneath the head of the vacuum. Sorry, so for the vacuum, we got a little ahead of ourselves here. For the vacuum, we want to go into the CS3000. And the vacuum unit, what this does is it actually solves that problem we just talked about. You want to keep everything under the head of the vacuum, and the CS3000 personal cleaning station does just that. It eliminates that risk and the problem of people blowing themselves off with compressed air. Mounts up to the wall, hooks up to a 3/8 or a 1/2-inch air line. It is actually used to vacuum off the user, keeping all that dust and debris underneath the head of the vacuum, and actually spritzes a little bit of compressed air with a pull of the trigger. and has everything jump up and vacuum up at the same time. So we have options for regular material and combustible dust in our static conductive unit that you can see up there on the wall. The black unit is the static conductive NED, non-electrical discharge unit, and the blue is for standard applications. So going over the cost savings aspect, which funnels through as a residual effect from the OSHA kit and the actual audits itself, we wanted to give you an example of a actual cost savings audit case study that we did. So this was up in Tennessee, and there was about 200 1-inch open ID hoses that they were using to blow down large equipment. So these hoses were consuming 798 CFM. Obviously, they're non-compliant, as you can see. So what we did is we retrofitted in our Force 5 safety air gun, which only consumes 185 CFM because of the engineering controls and the efficiency inside the gun. So the cost of compressed air is around 18 to 30 cents per CFM. In this part of the country, it was about 20 cents per CFM. So you can see already 798 times 20 compared to 185 times 20. 1 versus 1 is already a great savings. What we do is we take it a step further. We say, okay, how many guns do you have? You have 200. How many shifts are you running? You're running 3. How many minutes per shift are you actually pulling that trigger, releasing that air? They said 30 minutes. That helps us put together the minutes per year that they're actually using that compressed air, and then we're able to do the compressed air cost savings, where in this regard, it was over $500,000. And keep in mind, this was one out of 4 plants that we did for this one company in this area. And this translates into a 26-day payback period, which is a fabulous return on investment, as you can see.
So the cost savings is something that we can provide to you. We have a handy worksheet that allows you to walk the plant, review the workstations, fill out this worksheet, and all you're going to do is email it to us, and then we will be able to provide that cost savings right back to you. So we wanted to thank you for jumping on the call today. We discussed the OSHA regulations, the OSHA kit, the cost savings, and let us know how we can help. We can get those kits out to you. If you're in a larger plant and you need a couple of kits, just let us know. Just let us know and we can get those out. But we have a whole field and safety team that can, like I said, get out and walk your site with you, attend safety days or safety training.
So thank you, everybody, for coming. And again, here's our contact information on the bottom. As Beth said, feel free to reach out to us for any inquiries, specific questions, and we'll be happy to get out there, help you out. And also, please forward this webinar to anybody you think might be helpful for, and we'd be happy to oblige any questions they have as well. So thank you again, and stay safe.